Today, we are going to finish up the remaining Wulfen in my Space Wolf army. I've already spent quite a bit of time working on this army regarding the combat patrol, and these were some of the models that I have left sitting that I quite frankly has been kind of afraid to paint them. So today we are going to finally get them finished. Well, maybe halfway. I have 5 left over. I only show 4 in the video because one of them broke, so I have to put them back together. But I think I'm only going to do 2 today. But while I work on these models, I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about one of the most interesting parts of the Space Wolves, which is the Wulfen themselves. They're not simply giant Space Wolves. They are the result of a dark curse within the Space Wolves gene seed. So let's get these models on the painting desk, aka my computer desk, and talk about what exactly a Wulfen is. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Grimdark Journey. If you are new here, welcome. If you have returned since the other 2 videos, I'm so glad that you guys are returning to watch these videos as well. I figure I'll do a little bit talking before I get started on the painting. Just to give a little intel. I am going to do 2 out of the 4 remaining ones I have painting. Just because, like in my previous video, I said I used to do 5 at a time, and I feel like that did not go so well. I should have done more like separate, like individual ones, and worrying about 5 base coats. Just worry about 2. Like I'm just gonna be doing the paint base coats right now and get some details on these guys, and then once I get everything done with the other guys, I will create a video for all of them. I feel like that would be a better idea than just having one video for 5 of them. Part 2 would be like the complete army when I do like the finishing details for all of them. So yeah, so I'm going to paint this dude, the boy with the axe, and this dude. This guy, my camera's not really focusing, but you can tell like it's more open, that he's more like this, so it's easier to paint in the middle. This guy with the axe is blocking, but I do have a little bit of room here with my brushes to get into it. I am going to be using, I do have a good amount of paint, but not a lot of paint. I just got like the essentials. I just asked for like a list for Space Wolf characters, and most, not characters, but Space Wolf minis, and I got a good amount of paint. But I'm just, as of right now, until I don't want to do that thing where I buy a whole bunch of paint and I don't use half of them. So I'm just going to use what I have for these guys. So obviously, for their armor, I'm going to use the Russ gray that I've been basing my army with for their armor. And for their skin, I'm going to use Canon Flesh Tone. It's the same I use for Space Marines and Terminators for their flesh, and I kind of looked into it, and I said that this could be also for the Wulfen as well. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna work with what I have for now, and then just build my paint from there and see what I get. So the brushes I'm gonna use is Citadel color, is a regular one, and then for I'm also gonna use this one. It's like a 5/0. I don't know the correct term, but it's like the very thin one, and you can't really tell. Maybe if I do a close-up you won't be able to tell, but I don't know, I've grown so emotionally attached to this brush. I know I have to get rid of it because I don't know what you call this, like the brush, like the hair, like it was at one point straight, but then it kind of like that, and that's only because my kid was painting with it and she like with it when she was dumping it into water, and it ruined it, and I was kind of sad. But actually it kind of helped at the exact same time, because sometimes I was using this and I needed that little curve, and it did work. But I know that it's not gonna help me in the long run when I need it the most. I think what I'm going to do is use this one until I'm done with these Wulfen, because I just grew kind of attached to it. It's actually not, I don't know if this is a good brand. It's Golden Maple, and I got a pack of these, and this is like the only one that I've been using. I did just get another paintbrush pack of a different brand, and the paintbrush is Nick Pro. And I see that there's 2 of those brushes in here, the 5/4, and it's I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Nick Pro is actually. I don't know anything about paintbrushes. I don't know if this is a good brand, but they kind of look similar. I hope that the Nick Pro is pretty good because I've been reading like decent things about them. I got like this and a wet palette. I'm gonna use my old wet palette because this is my wet palette right now. It is just literally like a plastic container with, the squeegee that I got on Amazon. It was really cheap. I don't know. I think it was like $8 or something like that. But I have no problem with it. But I don't know, just like sometimes like it seems like the paint it dries out a little bit fast. So I don't know if I'm just doing it wrong or if that's just how the paint is. But the new palette I got is from like the Nick Pro. So yeah, this is a new palette I got. It's like there's something for paintbrushes. For it's like I forgot what it's called. And then over here you can put the sponge in there. So I'm pretty excited about using that. So I told myself what I'm going to do. So the goal, what I'm trying to do is I'm going to finish up the Wulfen with the palette I have now. The brushes I have now with this guy. I have no complaints about with the Citadel base brush. It's really good. Finish this combat patrol with what I started it with. And then once I move on to like the next big 3 ones that I have, like the leaders, that's when I'm going to use this. That's when I'm going to use the new paintbrushes because I don't know if I'm hurting myself, but I want to finish it with what I started it with. And that's just like a personal thing, I guess you can say. But no, definitely I'm going to use this for my next couple miniatures. Also, I got my Warhammer cup with the ridges. And I just keep it down here because I can just... this is my basement, obviously, so I just keep it down here. And this is what it's on my desk over there. So I just grab it and I just go for it. So with all that, let's start painting some minis. Alright guys, like I said, I'll be doing a voiceover as I am painting the miniatures. And as of right now, I am going to shake that paint, woo, shake that paint. I just got 2 colors, but I got, obviously you have to shake them. And as I'm doing this, I am doing a monster, so cheers everyone. White monster is the best monster. So as I'm going to be doing, you're going to be watching me speeding up. I don't really paint that fast. I wish I did, but I don't. But as I'm doing this, I'm going to give a little bit of background regarding the Space Wolves, regarding the Wulfen, which I am painting right now. So the Space Wolves are already known for their connection to the wolves. They're called Fenrising Wolves. I think I'm saying that right. Also, like their savage fighting style and their Viking inspired culture. But underneath all of that, there is something much darker. The Wulfen. A Wulfen is a space wolf who has, it's like a curse of the Wulfen. Instead of remaining completely human, the warrior begins to transform, something much closer to a monstrous wolf. They become obviously bigger, stronger, faster, and much more furious. But there's a price for all that. The more the curse takes over, the more difficult it becomes for the warrior to control himself. And that's what makes the Wulfen so interesting. Well, in my opinion. That they're not just monsters, they're space marines who are fighting against themselves inside themselves. Let me just repeat that again. The space marines who are fighting against something inside themselves. I feel like that's very intriguing, and it's kind of like the I believe the Blood Angels, they have something kind of similar. It's like when the Greenies gets hurt, I think it was that they felt it and they get through like the Black Rage, I think it's called. So 2 different things, but kind of similar. And if I'm saying that wrong, I am sorry if I'm getting the legions wrong. But to me, it kind of reminds me of that. But to continue, the Curse of the Wulfen has been part of Space Wolves lore, I guess, for a very long time. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, but it seems like it is. And the Space Wolves has always known their gene seed carries this potential. To me, the strange part is that the Space Wolves don't necessarily see the Wulfen as something completely separated from themselves. It's almost like the curse represents the most primal part of what it means to be a Space Wolf. Their entire culture revolves around wolves. Their strength, the hunting, brotherhood, violence, survival. But the Wulfen represents what happens when the instinct goes too far. The warrior becomes consumed by the wolf. And once that happens, they may not be much humanity left. So I'm going to bring up the history of the Wulfen, and it goes all the way back to like the origin of the Space Wolves. The Space Wolves were created from the gene seed of Leman Russ, the primarch of the Space Wolves. Russ himself was raised on Fenris, a brutal world where survival was never guaranteed. The culture of Fenris shaped the Legion, and the genetic legacy of Russ carried something with it, which is the curse. For much of the Legion's history, the Space Wolves kept the existence of the Wulfen as secret as possible. They didn't want other Imperial forces to know about their curse, because to outsiders, a Space Marine transformation into a giant wolf-like creature doesn't exactly look like something the Imperia would approve of, and that's one of the reasons the Space Wolves have always been something different from other chapters. They follow the Imperium, but they don't always follow its rules, which is Viking-like. One of the things I really like about the Space Wolves is that they're not portrayed as completely served by Space Marines. They're warriors from Fenris. They embrace the savage side of themselves. The wolf then take that idea to the extreme. A normal Space Wolf can control his instincts. A Wulfen struggles with the control. And there's another side of the Wulfen. They can actually become incredibly powerful warriors. The curse gives them the incredible physical strength and speed. Their senses become more animalistic, and when they charge into battle, they are absolutely terrifying. Imagine being an enemy soldier. You always survived, the Space Marines assault. Then you look across the battlefield and see that these enormous wolf-like creatures charging directly towards you. Yeah, I'll probably start running. Which brings me, what would happen if the Wulfen are like in battle? So when the Wulfen are unleashed onto the battlefield, they're usually sent into the thickest fighting. They're not exactly the unit you send to quietly hold a defense position. They're there to hit something, and they want to hit it hard. So the Space Wolves can use their Wulfen as a terrifying shock force, like a shock value. They charge into the enemy lines and rely on their speed, strength, and ferocity to tear through whatever it is in front of them. So, they don't look like they're standing around waiting for orders. They look like they're about 2 seconds away from running across the battlefield and ripping something apart. So, the Wulfen are one of the darkest parts of the Space Wolves, to me. The warriors who have allowed the curse inside them to take control. But instead of simply being discarded, they're still brothers of the chapter, and they're still Space Wolves. And when the chapter needs them, you know for a fact that the Wulfens are going to unleash. A little bit more of Wulfen lore. One of the most dangerous moments comes from when a young Fenris is being transformed into a Space Marine. During the iteration process, the aspirant receives the Canis Helix. This isn't some simple medical procedure. The transformation is violent. The body is aspirant is forced to change. Bones can break and reshape. Hair grows across the body. The young warrior can become overwhelmed by hunger and animalistic instincts, and some don't survive the process at all. Those who survive still have another challenge ahead of them, which is the task of Markai. The aspirant has to fight their way back through the brutal wilderness of Fenris. And they're not just fighting the environment, they are actually fighting themselves. They're trying to control the animal inside, and because if they completely lose control, they can become a Wulfen. And I think this is one of the coolest parts of the Wulfen lore. The curse is simply something that happens to Space Wolves once. Even the warriors who successfully control the Canis Helix are never completely free from it. The wolf is always there, just waiting. A space wolf can spend years fighting alongside his brothers. He can become a legendary warrior. He can earn honors and becomes a leader. But under enough stress, enough pain, enough rage, the curse can begin to surface again, and that's what makes the Wulfen so frightening. and cool at the exact same time. The Space Wolves isn't necessarily becoming something completely foreign. He's just losing the battle against something that was already inside him. Now, I may know what you're thinking. All Wulfen evil or bad? But here's something important about the Wulfen. They're not necessarily evil. They're just cursed. I mean, you can say the same thing about a vampire. There's a difference. The Wulfen may still be brothers of the Space Wolves. He may still remember his chapter. He may still recognize his brothers. There have been cases where Wulfen could be reasoned with or brought under control, but the problem is that nobody can completely trust the curse, and that creates a difficult situation for the Space Wolves. Do you destroy one of your own brothers because he's becoming a monster, or do you allow him to fight because that monster might actually might be excellent at what you need and when the enemy is coming? So that's a question that you should ask yourselves. And one of the most important parts of Wulfen history involves the Space Wolves' 13th Great Company. During the Great Crusades and the Horus Heresy, the 13th Company became known as the Lost Company. They were eventually lost in the warp while pursuing their enemies, and over the course of thousands of years, it became almost legendary. The Space Wolves didn't know exactly what happened to their lost brothers, but eventually they came back. So thousands of years after disappearing, the Wulfen, after the 13th Company, returned to the Imperium, and they didn't come back quietly. Their return happened during a period of enormous warp activity with chaos, and the Wulfen actually came to aid of horrid Death Wolf, and I hope I'm saying that right, and his forces during a chaos ambush. And when the Space Wolves finally realized who had saved them, they discovered that their lost brothers had survived, but they had changed. They were Wulfen. I just want to add one more thing. The curse can return. So, for example, one of the most interesting developments in the Wulfen story is that the curse doesn't seem to be completely predictable. Even warriors who have successfully resisted it can still potentially fall to it. And no later lore even suggests that contact with Wulfen may be capable of causing the curse to spread to other Space Wolves. That makes the Wulfen more than just a specialized unit. They represent a problem that could potentially threaten their entire chapter. And what's even crazier is that Primaris' Space Marines didn't completely solve the problem. The Space Wolves hoped that their new Primaris warriors might be protected from the curse, but they weren't. Even Primaris sons of Russ can fall victim to the curse of the Wulfen. So thousands of years of genetic knowledge and new technology and improved Space Marines creations, technologies, and the wolf is still there. So my final thoughts for the Wulfen, they are one of the best examples of what Space Wolves are really about. To me, the Space Wolves don't pretend that they're civilized warriors who have completely conquered their instincts. They embrace the wolves, they respect it, and they also fear it. Because every Space Wolf knows that the same animalistic strength that makes them powerful can also destroy them, the Wulfen are basically that struggle made physical. The wolf inside versus the man. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed that little history, lore, forms of Wulfen. And if I got anything wrong, I do apologize. I'm just going by what I looked up, what I researched, and what the internet gave me. So if I get anything wrong, I do apologize. If I am wrong, please just correct me and just let me know the real thing. So just want to let you know, I feel like I'm so upset because I just was talking about this brush, and I feel like I had to get rid of it. This this was kind of giving me a damper in it, because the brush, I need to get rid of this now that I'm really looking at this, and I really like this brush. So now I'm kind of upset that I have to get rid of it, because this was actually making my painting a lot harder. Well, I can't be so mad because it actually painted like, 16 minis. So yeah, it's really bad. So I don't like how these came out. I just did the base coat for the skin and the armor, but I know that I'm going to touch it up, and I'm not going to do two of them. I am going to focus on one, then the other one, and then when the time comes to I'll base the other two, the armor and the skin, and then I'm just going to work one by one by one. But I don't know if you're going to be able to see. Maybe if I turn off my screen light, I don't know. doesn't really help at all. So let me put the light back on. Maybe that would do a little justice. Well, kind of. Let me do the hand thing. You know what? I think I just have to make a video with my phone. So as you can see, I just did the base, the armor, the skin or the fur. I guess you can mainly call it fur. I know it's a bad hack job. I feel like it's a hack job, and I feel like I really have to go back. So I'm gonna do one at a time, and I'm just gonna fix everything. But now I have an idea like where things are which, and I feel like the paintbrush. Just for example, I'm gonna show you right now. This is the paintbrush. That's what I was working with. I don't want to make excuses, but I feel like that kind of got me to where I'm at. Like I'm not blaming the paintbrush. I mean, I feel like that had just had something, because when you don't paint with like a fine tip, it's kind of difficult. So long story short, I'm gonna use a different paintbrush because, like I said, I got like 2 packs of gold ones and then Nico, but I think I'm gonna use a Nico later. So I'm going to use one of the other brushes from like that gold brushes for like a base brush. But yeah, hope you like it. Check back in with me maybe when this video comes out. I think it's gonna be a Wednesday, so maybe check back with me next Wednesday and see if I finish this or if I have any progress with these, and hopefully I get done with them. The next video would be this army completed, and I can start my next section of minis I want to do. Enjoy. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on this journey, and I'll be seeing you soon.